welcome into another edition of Talking Fitchburg on this Friday, December 4th, 2020. Jeremy Crosby here. Hope you had a wonderful day. Glad you're joining us here tonight on an early edition of Talking Fitchburg, because happening at 6 tonight, we have our Talk with Santa happening. So we're glad you're joining us a little bit early, and you're in for a treat. We got a busy show lined up for you. We're going to swap things up. So I know we were talking about doing the slow cooking, but we're going to move that to early next week, and instead we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, which we were talking with the elections and the Fitchburg Historical Society, part 2 or I should say 3 and 4 today from that interview, learning the inside of what happened during the election here in the city of Fitchburg from the eyes of one of our election inspectors. So very excited to share that story with you. I said we'll have Andrea Miller. I know we said we were going to have her today, but we'll have her on next week talk about that slow cooking. But first, let's get into your headlines here for the day. And we start with COVID-19 symptoms. We wanted to share this with you. The numbers have been spiking for COVID-19 and people being infected, so we wanted to make sure to share information out there about it. This is from Wisconsin Department of Health Services, the list, and we know that there's definitely been a lot of different symptoms related to this, but these are the common ones to look for. Cough, a new onset or worsening chronic cough, shortness of breath, fever, chills, sore throat, runny nose, muscle pain, headache, a new loss of taste or smell. And knowing the emergency warning signs of COVID-19 are very important, when you should get and seek a medical attention immediately. That's if you have trouble breathing, a persistent pain or pressure in your chest, new confusion or irritability to be woken up, bluish skin, lips, or tongue. This list is not inclusive, though, so please consult your doctor or medical provider if any of these symptoms are severe or are concerning. Yeah, if you have any questions, I mean, don't hesitate to call your doctor's office and make sure if something just doesn't feel right. It's better to get that checked before stuff gets worse. And sticking with COVID-19, I want to talk about the contact tracing as that continues, and that helps gather the data for us so we know where and how this disease continues to be spread. So keep your family and your friends safe. Answer the call. If you receive a call from our contact tracers, break the chain of infection by answering the call. Contact tracing is a confidential technique public health workers use to track the spread of a disease. So let your contacts know. If you test positive, notify people you have been in close contact with and tell them to get tested. What do you tell your close contacts? Well, stay home for at least 14 days after their last interaction with you if they test negative. Contact their doctor or local health department with questions. Get a COVID-19 test if they don't have any symptoms. And of course, you can visit Department of Health Services Wisconsin for more information. And this is all in to try to stop the spread of this terrible, terrible disease. Sticking with COVID here, new map was added to show a breakdown of COVID-19 cases and deaths by county, census tract, municipality, school district, and by zip code. So I have this zoomed in. I did take this snapshot early this morning, so things may have changed, but at the time that I took this is looking at Dane County. And looks like the northern part of Fitchburg is seeing cases, over 71 cases of new cases per 100,000 of the population. So if you were kind of questioning how close it is or around you, it's all around us here in Dane County, as you can see, but definitely some hot spots here right on the Madison-Fitchburg border there. So please do your part. Continue to practice social distancing. Continue to stay up to date on this, again, this terrible pandemic. That way we can certainly stay protected during this pandemic. And again, we'll continue to pass on the word as we do every day here on Talking Fitchburg. All right, turning our attention to Find It in Fitchburg. Yeah, we want you to shop locally this year, and we have some great businesses here in the city of Fitchburg. And the Fitchburg Chamber has put together a nice website here talking about shopping locally. So if you haven't done so already, we want you to, right? Yeah, we want you to check out this site. Shopping local is more important and easier than ever. Whether it is a gift, weekly supplies, or much needed services, you can find it in Fitchburg. Our businesses have made it easy for you to shop online and offer curbside pickup and delivery, in addition to making you comfortable for in-person shopping. Consider gift cards as a great way to the holiday season. Again, we have so many different things: pet supplies, personal care products, clothes, and so much more. So if you haven't shopped in Fitchburg, come on, you're missing out. We got so much cool stuff going on here. All right, turning our attention to the Fitchburg Police Department on a shots fired incident. I want to pass this information on if you have any information that you can share with the police department. It happened early this morning around 1:38 a.m. Officers from the Fitchburg Police Department responded to the Belmore Hills neighborhood for numerous calls reporting hearing several gunshots in the area. Upon arrival, officers began a detailed search of several streets and intersections in the neighborhood, as well as callers reporting hearing gunfire from several different locations. Officers on foot canvassed in the 2300 block of Red Arrow Trail, located 7 casings in the roadway. A check of surrounding residents did not turn up any property damage, nor was there any indication that any persons involved or innocent bystanders were struck by gunfire. Witnesses did report seeing a white vehicle fleeing the area at a high rate of speed. The investigation into this incident is ongoing. Anyone with information is encouraged to contact the Fitchburg Police Department. There's numerous ways to submit tips, by the way, on the website, fitchburgwi.gov. But you can call the non-emergency line at 270-4300, or you can submit tips to Madison Area Crime Stoppers at 266-6014. Yeah, very important. If you got any details on that, share that information with the police department. All right, starting on Monday, we'll have new construction happening. This is happening on the bike trail. The Military Ridge Path and Cannonball Path will be closed for sanitary sewer replacement starting on Monday, December 7th. This project is expected to last a full year and will wrap up next year at this time in 2021. Portions of these paths will be closed during the project, and we'll continue to update you on this as this project continues on. But there'll be different detours that are set up as well to get you around this, which is important, and I wanted to make sure to show you this map and just watch for those bike detour signs as you head out here and getting your winter biking on. All right, that does it for our headlines. Coming up next, we open up our guest segment. Yeah, we're going to continue our talk with the elections in Fitchburg Historical Society. We'll talk all of that next right here on Talking Fitchburg.
Home fire drills give your family a plan of action. In a home fire, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. So when you drill, show everyone 2 ways out of the house, pick a safe meeting spot, and get there in under 2 minutes. Then practice home fire drills at least twice a year. You can even make them fun, so everyone knows the sound and exactly what to do when they hear a smoke alarm. Go to ready.gov/fire drill and learn how to prepare your family for home fires.
Well, there was, of course, concern for the voter safety generated a significant increase in requests for absentee ballots, particularly for the November 3rd presidential general election. How was this handled in Fitchburg? And then how were you involved, Sonia?
Okay. Yeah, it really did. Early on, people were requesting absentee ballots, and as you know, there are rules about everything, and definitely there are rules, laws about how we handle the absentee ballots. And there's a certain window of time that the clerks have to actually get the ballots out and mailed. They have to get them out in time for the overseas voters, those folks in the military, who of course still want to vote here, for their elections. And this year it was especially a short window, just a few days, that we had to get the ballots out because the Supreme Court had to weigh in on who exactly was going to be on the ballot. You know, there was some controversy there. And so in fact, it would have been impossible for the city employees to get these out on their own. So they enlisted the help of all of us chiefs. So we came in, when the ballots come in, they are checked into the WisVote system, and it's the WisVote system that can generate all of the labels for the ballots going out. And so we were putting labels on both the mailing envelope as well as the return envelope. We were preparing the ballots. They all have to be stamped with absentee. They all have to be stamped with the proper wards. We have to make sure that we get the right ones to the right people. Just in my district alone, we have 4 different ballots for November. And it's all based on which ward they're in district and which school district they are a part of. You know, so we have a lot of ballots and there's a lot to put together. So we folded everything, inserted it with the instructions, and then got all of those envelopes out so that Tracy, our city clerk, could get them out on time when she needed to. So yeah, it was a lot of work to get those out.
Sounds like a major task within a short period of time to get done. You were certainly under time constraints there. Could you also talk about how the early voting in-person absentee voting from October 20th through the 30th went at the Fitchburg Community Center? And I know curbside voting was also available. So how was that conducted, and then how did that work out?
Okay. There's early voting is always an option for people. And early voting, I think a lot, in fact, I know a lot of people that came in didn't realize that early voting is really in-person absentee voting. It's still absentee voting. Nothing can be counted until election day. Nothing can be opened, you know, it's everything has to wait until election day. So usually the clerks take care of all of the in-person voting, the early voting, right there in the office, you know, right there, kind of in the hallway. But for this presidential election, we knew that it was going to be big, and we also, of course, had to think about social distancing and COVID safety. So we set up in Oak Hall in the big community center, gymnasium, I guess you'd call it, so that there was enough room. And again, it was not only the chiefs this time, but also several of the other election inspectors that were serving throughout those days. Tremendously successful. The first day alone, we had over 500 people that came in. We had a line when we arrived, you know, to do our jobs. There was a line way out into the parking lot. And we averaged, I think, about 200 people a day that came in and did that. Curbside voting has always been an option for people too, but generally it's considered for those people who are physically unable to come into the polling location. And this time though, we were using it and encouraging people, anyone who had active COVID, to use that option instead of coming in and exposing all kinds of people to it. So we were also, by the November election, had smartened up about it and had people call us ahead of time so we knew what time they were coming so that we could prepare. And not only wearing masks, but then putting on a face guard, preparing the materials to take out to the people. The people would show us their ID through the car window so we could take down the information. We'd write that on a log sheet. And instead of, usually you take their ID and you go into the polling location, and that's how you get the ballot and all of that. Yeah, but this time we write down the information that we needed so that we didn't have to touch their IDs. Went in, got the ballot, got the envelope, brought it back out to them, put it on a clipboard. They used their own pens. We kind of slid it through a car window very carefully. They filled it all out. We watched them do it. We had them fold up the ballot, put it into the envelope, had them sign it, and then put it back on the clipboard. They gave us the clipboard. And by the way, we also wore gloves so that we didn't, we weren't actually touching it. And then took all of that back in and sprayed the heck out of it. We sprayed even the paper, and we let that paper sit until it dried. And then we could sign it as witnesses and put it in with the rest of the ballots. But we didn't want to contaminate, the rest of the ballots with the ones that were there. We weren't quite that sophisticated back in April. And in fact, I kind of got freaked out a little bit when one of my curbside voters, with her window down, no mask on, said, "Oh yeah, I'm positive." And I was like, "Oh goodness, yeah, right." Mm-hmm. But happily, I didn't get it. So all turned out well.
Amazing how you were able to adapt to let all the voters who came, even with COVID, were able to vote.
Yeah.
That's quite a remarkable story.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Election Day itself on November 3rd. Would you go through Election Day with us and then describe where you were located specifically, how the day went, what the atmosphere was like, and maybe what stood out to you about Election Day?
Okay. All right. Well, Election Day for the inspectors starts early. We start at 6 o'clock. So at 6 o'clock, I was over at the Wyndham Garden Inn, which is over on Cahill, Maine, which is where District 3 is. And when I arrived, there were already voters in line. This is 6 o'clock in the morning. Polls don't open until 7, but
It's dark. It's dark out.
It was dark. Absolutely, it was dark. So my job at that point, well, and I need to say, we try to have 2 chief election inspectors at each polling location. So it isn't just me. I've got another person helping me. But what we do between 6 and 6:30 is, get the lights on, turn on all of the equipment, turn on the machines, the tabulators, there's a report that we have to run off of each of the tabulators that proves that there's no ballots inside. Nothing's been counted yet. So we've got to get those reports run. We use the Badger book system developed by the Wisconsin Elections Commission. It's like a notebook computer and software, and we use that for processing absentee ballots, for checking voters in, and for registration. So all of that has to be started up and gotten ready for all of the workers. The workers come in at 6:30. And as I said, I had 6 people who had never worked before. I had a few people who had never used the Badger books before. So we were scrambling, trying to get everybody situated into their particular position and get them to understand what they needed to do. Also had to get the ballots ready. The ballots are locked up in the tabulators until we arrive. So had to unlock and get all the ballots out, get those over to the ballot table, get the people there started with. Each of the ballots have to have 2 initials on them. And we got to make sure that they are stamped with that we got the right ones, that they're stamped with the right wards and all of that. So got those people started with that. And then promptly at 7 o'clock, open the polls. And by that time, we had people lined up and way across the parking lot. And we just went constantly for at least, I would say, until at least 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that, before we could even take a breath. I mean, it was just a constant, everybody was there. You know, they were very serious about wanting to vote, you know, and very determined to take whatever time it was going to take. And so, yeah, it was a steady stream throughout the day. Yeah. Constant, constant folks. um, we didn't really know what to expect on voting day. You know, there'd been all kinds of potential for disruption and intimidation and that kind of thing. Um, Basically, I had the police department on speed dial in case we needed them. You know, as a chief and elections inspector, it's my job to tell people to leave if they are causing a disruption. So, you know, we were prepared when if we were going to have that. But happily, as it turned out, it was just the opposite. At one point, somebody came in and they said, "Did you know, Sonia, that there's a vendor out there? There's a food cart out in the parking lot, and there's live music." And there was, and throughout, I don't know whether it was noon or what time, I'm not sure, I don't recall what time, but throughout the afternoon, it was like a party out there. It was wonderful. And yes, I had people, if you picture the location, I had people across the parking lot, down the hill, down Cahill Main, and down all the way to Fishhatchery Road that were in line waiting. And it was primarily because they were all being really good about 6 feet apart, you know, staying socially distant. Um, and even with that, I've got to say, we processed them fairly quickly. I asked a few people, well, you know, how long have you been in line? And they would say, well, I was expecting, you know, maybe a couple hours, but it's only been like 20 minutes, you know, so 20 minutes, a half hour. So I felt really good about the fact that we were able to get those folks going through. People were very respectful of us, which was nice. I mean, I had to turn some people away to be able to vote, and you got to be registered. And I had about 300 people that came in that needed to register during the day. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of people. And to register, you have to be living in the city of Fitchburg at your current address, for at least 28 days. And I had a few people that were 20 days, you know, 2 weeks, whatever. They just didn't meet the requirement. And some of them were Fitchburg residents. I mean, they had previously lived in Fitchburg too. But unfortunately, they hadn't registered at that previous address. And so I couldn't let them vote. I mean, if they had been registered at their previous address, I could have had them vote a presidential only ballot, and that would have worked. But I couldn't, you know. So I had a few people that it was a few. I mean, it wasn't many. Anybody who came in who needed to wanted to vote but didn't have an ID, didn't have the proper ID. No, you can't vote in Wisconsin with an Illinois driver's license. You can't do that. Those folks, we offered a provisional vote, the option to vote provisionally. And then they have, so what that does is they fill out a ballot, we put it in a special envelope, seal it, and we'll take that to City Hall. And they have until the Friday, 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon after the election. And if they bring their photo ID, a valid photo ID, or their passport, for example, then we can certify and validate that ballot and add that to the total. But you know, and we had quite a few people who filled out provisional ballots citywide. But when it came right down to it, on Monday, when our Board of Canvass met, we only had 2 people, I think, that had come back with the IDs. But at least they have that option. So we work really hard to make sure that everybody can vote who is eligible, and that their votes will be counted.
Mm.
So at 8 o'clock then, promptly shut the polls down. Anybody who's in line at that point or in the building can continue to vote and until they're all gone. Then I close the polls on the tabulators, run the reports there from the tabulators, then modem the results from there directly to Dane County. And that's where they get the early results from. Run reports, close the polls on the Badger Book stuff, close down the express vote. Then we pull out all of the ballots out of the tabulators, and all of those have to be sorted. And they're sorted because we had 4 different ballot types. All of those were sorted into 4 different piles. And then within those 4 different piles, we had absentee versus regular ballots, any ballots that had to be remade. And then we had to find and record all of the write-in ballots. So there were like 16 different piles, so to speak. And then all of those are put into a ballot bag, and they're sealed, labeled, and those are locked back into the tabulators and brought back to City Hall. So those ballots are never out of control, out of sight. And they're always locked up, and they're always secure. Most of my workers, that all takes a long time, and then we got to pack everything up, tear it down, put it away. Most of my workers were able to leave, I think, about 9:30 or so. So it wasn't too bad. The other chief and I were there. I think we checked out at about 11, because it took a lot to put things away. We had reports and numbers to crunch and such to do. So it was a long day, but it was fun. We had a good time. It is good time with all those folks.
Wonderful to hear you say that, Sonia, to have your personal story about the even though the long hours, certainly there must have been stress along with that, and maybe some tension, wondering how the day would go, and then getting people trained and up and going. But then at the end of the day, to feel that sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, I would think, and know that you had, and to actually be able to use the word fun also connected with how the day went.
We're exercising at the Fitchburg Senior Center. We do aerobics, balance, strength training, posture. We want you to stay healthy and strong and exercise. Keep on being fit.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear. Because for 75 years, he's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But there's a lot more to say. Like if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So keep the animals safe, especially the cute shirtless one. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Wrapping up the show for today, I want to thank our guests from the Fitchburg Historical Society, both Sonia from one of the election inspectors, and of course Catherine from the Fitchburg Historical Society. A great interview. We got that whole interview posted up online for you at Facebook and YouTube. All right, as we wrap up the day, remember to stay connected with us all day, all weekend long. And have a fun and safe weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here on Monday.